our last line of defense. I do solemnly swear that I'll be faithful to the Republic of South Africa, obey the laws and regulations, and perform my duties conscientiously and with integrity. I undertake to serve the Republic with loyalty, honor, and dignity, to uphold the rights and freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. I swear that I will, when required to do so, defend the Republic against any threat or attack, and I'll obey all lawful commands and instructions. And I understand that I may be required to make the ultimate sacrifice in the execution of my duties, and I accept this willingly. So help me God. With these words, our men and women in the armed services go to confront enemies within and outside our borders, and they go knowing they may never return, all in the name of upholding a sacred vow to protect the Republic. The minister tasked with oversight and the decisions over their lives is now Angie Motshekga, who gave her budget vote earlier this week and who joins us now on the line. Minister, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for agreeing to talk to us. Good morning.
No, good morning, Bongani, and good morning to the listeners.
I read the oath that all our men and women of the armed services have to take, because ultimately they place their lives in your hands, in the hands of the Commander-in-Chief.
The Commander-in-Chief is the President. I'm the Minister, so...
Correct.
Yeah.
I said they place their lives in your hands and in the hands of the Commander-in-Chief.
No, I'm sorry, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So, firstly, Minister, let's start with some of the reaction to your appointment. There have been some protests about your suitability, critics saying, but you have zero military experience. What's your response to that?
I'm used to it. You know, when I was appointed in education in 2009, despite the fact that I spent all my life in education, there were also protests. So I think it comes with the terrain. So
sure. In education, I mean, of course, you had a background in teaching. So
exactly. Even then, there were protests to say, why appoint her as minister? So what I'm saying, you'll always have the naysayers, but you'll always have people, many people who congratulate you and wish you well. So I'm normally not shaken, because I understand that my responsibility is not to be a soldier, but in the department, the civic responsibilities more than anything is to run the department and also make sure that the instructions of cabinet, especially in this department, are implemented to the full. So I don't need to be a soldier to be able to say this should be the budget that goes into human resources, or that we should prioritize vehicles, or we should implement. It's an implementation of cabinet decisions. This is a very important department. So you don't take decisions on your own, major decisions, as you read the oath, which affects people's lives without really having a collective responsibility. So it really didn't bother me.
Fair answer, Minister. You are taking over a key ministry. Some would stay in really a state that's a shadow of its former glory.
It has challenges, I must say, but it's a beautiful ministry. I was equally surprised. I've been visiting different sites. I've been speaking to managers. I've been even visiting the hospitals. There is still a lot that is in the department. Yes, there are challenges like all other departments, where you have shortage of equipment, where you have shortage of resources. I mean, that's the same thing where I come from. There were problems with infrastructure because we didn't have enough money. We didn't have capacity. So it's strange that some of the problems that I found are similar to problems everywhere in the department. But what is great about the Defence Force, I think it's because of the culture thereof. They have a very disciplined, very organized machine. So you could see that it's a war machinery. You have very capable lieutenants. So it has challenges, but shadow of its old self, I wouldn't say so.
I'll tell you why I mentioned that and why I started with that oath at the beginning of our conversation is because, of course, what you describe as challenges is often calculated in the cost of lives in the armed services. Our soldiers are dying needlessly in some instances with equipment and gear shortages that are chronic. And I know that you spoke about an awareness of the inadequacy of the budget that you are allocated. But as I say, ultimately, the price here, when these things go wrong, is paid in human lives.
That's the sad thing about defense, to be honest. And that's what we've been raising the Treasury to say. A shortage in the defense force is not like a shortage in a school where there's no desk. It really is life-threatening. And there's complete commitment from government to help us update and upgrade our machinery. But it's not as if it's, I say, the impression that is given that we're operating from zero. But where you're correct is that it's a very different space because it's about life. So any mistake or any shortage does affect people's lives. So that's where we are correct, and that's why with the Minister of Treasury, we really looking at making sure. I mean, already this week, as I said to him, there is a dire shortage of money in some other areas, and as you say, shortage in defense is very dangerous. He managed to get with the president, quickly say they gave us 2.8 billion in a vacuum, something which just does not happen in government, that you say fire and then people jump. And it's because they appreciate the fact that if there's fire in defense, there's a bigger crisis comparatively.
Minister, and I fully appreciate that you're just coming in here. So I'm really looking more for your views about what can be done differently as I raise some of these issues. Let's start here at home before we get anywhere else. Recently, the soldiers who died from carbon monoxide poisoning in Orkney, now that's the kind of thing that should not happen. They were so cold, they were forced to make a fire in a shipping container because they were so poorly resourced, doing an overnight shift, trying to deal with the problem of illegal mining. That's just the kind of thing you don't want to hear from the military.
Not at all, actually, because even 4 young soldiers, just too much. So it was a very shattering experience, and it's the things that I think when we are discussing with the generals, it's avoidable. And it's not the only one. There are incidents where I'm told the tents are sometimes not, especially in these rains, you find the tents are not strong enough to take the winds. And we've listed all the things that are urgent, have to be done, because to get heating facilities or even to get them a proper place to sit in can be more expensive than their lives. So what I'm saying, Bongani, we are acknowledging that there are ongoing challenges. What I am trying to communicate that despite all those problems, there's huge, as you read the oath, there's huge commitment from the men and women in the armed force, and it is our responsibility as government to make sure that we protect them because they're giving their lives to protect us.
I guess the question really is, are we doing so? I mean, I know they are willing to put their lives on the line. And do we need a rethink in terms of our strategy here? We can't keep officers from dying from being exposed to the elements, as I've just illustrated. We're losing troops in the DRC quite frequently. Again, the charge is the same. They're ill-equipped, they're ill-prepared. We've now committed nearly 3,000 soldiers, essentially to pick up a side in what is a civil war. So whether it's Burundi or Darfur in Sudan, Mozambique next door, and the DRC, as I mentioned, we're overstretched, we're overcommitted, and we're sending these young people to their deaths because we cannot protect them, as you say we must.
Well, I'm not sure what the issue is, because I've indicated before to say there's complete commitment in government to help address the ongoing challenges. In my speech, I did also report that I found that they have done a review of the military, which we will finish by September and start implementation plans. And part of the review is to first arrange or sort out budget issues, but structural issues. And I found that process underway. So it had started almost 2 years and it's about to be finished. It was commissioned from the instructions of the President in the 6th administration. So there's complete awareness around the challenges in the defense force and the need to do different. Because even some of the things that they are asked to do are outside their mandate. If there's a flood, the defense force is asked to go and support police. It's an unfunded mandate because you find that it's not their responsibility, it's local government. If there's a fire, like if there were riots in KZN, and the defense force is called upon, whereas it's a police responsibility. So it's to even look broader to say, how do we have memorandums of understanding, especially internally, with responsible departments, with COCTA, with the police, so that they are not overstretched, as you correctly say, even on matters which are not within their budget, that which then stretches the budget. Even on external missions, the reports that I got, that even in the DRC, it's actually not necessarily our mission, it's a UN mission, so we get refunded for some of those activities. So it's not from our core budget. But you're correct to say, despite the fact that we get refunded, for instance, in your DRC mission, because it's not a South African mission, because it's as if we took our children alone and then went to DRC. It is part of the SADC mission, and South Africa were part of SADC and have contributed also a force to go. They were not there alone.
Sure.
Contributed a force there, and there is a refund. But the bottom line, you agreed that we can still do more to protect our children, especially as you correctly mentioned in the oath that they have given their last or are willing to give their lives for us, and therefore we should not make a mistake of compromising their lives. So that's what
we've seen other countries who've been part of these missions withdraw their troops. And I know you're talking about a defense review, but the last official one that I can recall was done under Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. Even that was criticized for being overly ambitious and unrealistic given the fiscal constraints that even you are going to have to deal with. In other words, what I'm really asking, Minister, is should we not take 2 steps back and try to get the basics right and try to deal with the structural issues and try to deal with the budget issues before we're overstretched in all the situations that you've also mentioned?
And the point I'm making is that is being done. So you're asking us to do that which we're doing. And that's why constant discussions between myself, the president, and just within the week, I mean, I'm hardly a month in the office, but I'm sure I've had more than 3 meetings with the Minister of Finance to see if we can do that. But that's not the only problem. As I say, some of the problems are also internal expectations from the army. Even those young men who died in the container, they were on the line for doing something which is not part of the defense of looking after of chasing Zamazamas. Then it overstretches the department because in terms of their planning, in terms of equipment, in terms of their facilities, it's not what normally the army plans for.
Or should be doing, yeah.
Our kids end up in containers, whereas if it was in their function to be part of the infrastructural plan of the defense, but because it's overstretched, it's your Zama, it's your riots, and all these things are not part of the military plan and equipment and facilitation. But we accept that it is hard force that the country needs, therefore it has to be deployed. We have to find a way of saying now that we are in support of other departments because we have to bring hard force, what more do we need to do? But as I say, it's areas that the defense force will not have planned for because it's not the area of their operation and therefore it's not the area of their equipping.
New ideas, new perspectives. We wish you luck, Minister, and no doubt you and I will chat at some future date. Angie Motshekga is the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.